Welcome to Holistic Human Performance Podcast. My name is Gena Bradshaw, where we talk all things holistic health, wellness, spirituality, fitness, meditation, energetics, and so much more to help you become the healthiest version of yourself. Let's dive in. This is not medical advice. This is simply to help you on your journey through health, fitness, and wellness. I hope this helps. You can complement this with anything that you are doing currently in your life. Enjoy. Hey guys, Gena here, and I am so excited to announce that the Holistic Human Performance Virtual Wellness Center is officially launched. Yep, that's right. We've officially launched. And this is like having a holistic health and energy coach in your back pocket. If you need a 5-minute reset, okay, great. What do we have? You need breath work. Okay, great. You need a little bit of mobility flow, nutrition coaching. Great. You can access all of these on-demand videos and self-paced digital courses for a 5-day free trial. That's right. I'm giving this to you guys for a 5-day free trial so you can try it out, see if you like it, see if it works for you, and see if it actually is conducive to your lifestyle and it helps you to create change. It is literally like having me in your back pocket. So again, I'm giving you this for a 5-day free trial. Head on over to holistichumanperformance.co and get your free trial today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Holistic Human Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Gena Bradshaw, and today we have a very special guest, Jaclyn Kiernan. Her and I met. She actually came to the Empowered Authors community that I host once a month, and I'm so happy that you came to that class that day. We had such a great conversation, and I'm so excited for your journey of becoming like a writer and an author. And not only that, you have such an amazing background too. Not only are you a registered dietitian, but you're also a Reiki Master Teacher, and how you combine the two, much like what I do. That's why we vibe. You're combining science and spirituality, closing that gap. And you have a really great story that I wanted the listeners to really hear about, because so I had thyroid cancer, but I see so many people that have thyroid issues today and at a very young age. And I really wanted you to come on and share your story. So I'm not going to take away the spotlight. Without further ado, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I think we need more people like us who are combining that spirituality and that science.
I agree. And I think we're going in that direction. Definitely. Yes. It's going to take some time, but I think the more and more people that become aware of the number one, the gift that they have is their body, but yes, also just like really, I believe, like, what is the meaning of health to you? And then taking that direction from there. But however, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about your story. And then also, Jaclyn healed herself holistically of Hashimoto's. And for those of you who don't know, we're going to get really into it, but Hashimoto's is a quote unquote dis-ease and disruption of the functionality of your thyroid. And Jaclyn's going to go into it, but tell us, like, how did you get to where you're at, and then share your story of how you even did that.
Sure. Oh my gosh, it's so funny because it's such a long story. So I always have to remember what parts it kind of broke down into. But yeah. And I will say the one thing is I was really blessed. Everyone that hit my path, and I think this happens for everyone too, hit my path at exactly the right time. God, and the universe really had my back in that
Yeah.
sense when it came to writing my wellness story. But I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism in 2012. But before that, in
Mm.
2011, during my normal blood work, I was told my thyroid was wonky. And at that time, I was 18. I didn't even know I had a thyroid, didn't know what it did. Didn't, when you're 18, I feel like you don't pay a ton of attention to what's going
So
on in your
true.
body. So I said, okay, it's wonky. Don't really know what that means. They told me they'll visit it next year. So the following year came back, quote unquote wonky. Again, that was the word that was used. And I was put on levothyroxine and told, just take this pill the rest of your life. And, that's all you can do. And I didn't look into it. I didn't think anything further. At that point, the doctor's statement was kind of law for me. I didn't put any thought behind it. Just thought, okay, take this pill. And as the years went on, I just kept feeling worse. And it came to a point where in 2015, I almost lost a scholarship in college because I was struggling with chronic fatigue. I had brain fog that was brutal. There were some days I couldn't remember simple words, and it was really embarrassing. There were points during my dietetic internship where I was just, forgetting simple things that I should know. And it was so frustrating. So once it came down to the end of my schooling, somebody had shared with me after I had explained that I just wasn't feeling better. And I didn't understand that if I was taking this medication, how could I just be getting worse, even though the dose was increasing over time? It just didn't make any sense to me. So she had actually said, you might have Hashimoto's. And
Mm.
that was in 2016. And I had never heard of Hashimoto's. So I went home, I looked it up. I asked my doctor for an appointment, went, and that's when I was diagnosed after meeting with my doctor, doing some lab work. And that honestly felt like a victory, which I know is the opposite for a lot of people getting a diagnosis, but it meant I wasn't crazy. So during the years that I was, feeling wonky, I had been to cardiologists, I had been to neurologists, I had been to multiple different doctor's appointments trying to figure out why I had arrhythmias, trying to figure out why I was passing out, why I was dizzy, why I had this brain fog, why I couldn't focus. And I just remember thinking, I'm so young. This shouldn't be the case. You don't hear of people feeling this way in their young 20s. And once I finally got that diagnosis, I just dove into everything I could. And, someone had said, oh, I think there's a book. And at that time, Isabel Wentz, the thyroid pharmacist, was really the only person who was out with anything. So I dove into her books, and then I just started, kind of just trusting the universe would take me wherever. It led me to Reiki. That's when I started working with the throat chakra and became a
Oh
Reiki
yeah.
practitioner. That throat chakra work is not easy work. It's not for the faint
Nope.
of heart. But I ended up going into remission in 2019. So it definitely took a lot of work, but I don't think it would have been possible without the spirituality and the science and learning, how to heal my body fully, not just from a physical sense.
Right. It's really frustrating to hear how many doctors you went to and you like hold them at such a high standard. And obviously they do the best that they can, most of them. But like at the end of the day, it's super frustrating to hear how you were so young and going from doctor to doctor and not one of them could figure out how to help you. And that's pretty sad, honestly, if you think about it. All the schooling that they go to and to go from doctor to doctor with super high credentials and for them to just be like, sorry, we don't know, we can't help you. And also not even give you any recommendations of like who to go to or anything. Like, but again, it's part of the journey and you would have never gotten to this point if it wasn't for going through all that adversity, which is really
Yes.
cool. So what I really also want to get into is obviously we know there's not one thing that healed the thyroid. Right.
No, absolutely not. There's a lot.
So what was your starting point? Because again, there's so many listeners that have thyroid problems, my clients, students, so many people. What was your first step into kind of that healing of the thyroid? Like what was your first move?
My first move was nutrition because that was what I knew. And I had just graduated with my bachelor's in nutrition. And I had remembered actually I had one doctor who approached me he was a traditional medicine doctor, but he approached me from a little bit more of a functional medicine point.
Mm.
And he was a cardiologist. And when I had my arrhythmia and I was passing out and low blood pressure, he had said, I don't want to put you on medication because you're so
Wow.
young. I don't want to put you on medication. I just feel like there's something we can do. And he had actually recommended I carry a salty snack like pretzels or crackers with me everywhere and have electrolytes. And so when I was first diagnosed, I sat down and I was like, okay, nutrition, that's what I know. What can I do with nutrition? So I read one of Isabel Wentz's books and I cut out gluten and dairy. But
Mm,
then I also thought back to this particular doctor and I was like, well, you know what? Maybe nutrition, and it's so sad that I even didn't think this immediately coming out of school. But I was like, maybe nutrition holds a little bit more weight than I'm giving it credit for. And it was really a very strong foundation to start from.
mm,
And to echo your statement before too, I spent a couple of years working in private practice, and the amount of women that I've had come into my office crying because they just felt so misunderstood. And, their symptoms, nobody could label their symptoms, from the chronic fatigue, especially the brain fog. That was the number one thing that I think a lot of women had shared, that nobody understood. Nobody, knew what to do with. And, I just feel like there was such a letdown from so many people. And I could completely understand it too.
I agree. I know it's just a huge letdown, but again, it's a matter of taking action. You got to take ownership of your health at the end of the day.
Yes.
If you're not someone who's going to advocate for yourself, you're going to get run over throughout this medical
Yes.
system. And then you're going to be on 15 medications. Those medications are all going to interact with each other and have negative side effects. And
Yep.
that is just what it is, unfortunately.
Yes.
And that's why we're doing what we do.
Yes. And I always say this too. It's so hard, the traditional medical system, because of the pressure we put on, or they have on them as well, because they have
Yeah.
to see so many people so quickly
Yeah.
that it's just hard all around, I think, on everyone.
I agree. It's a very, like, there's not 1 ounce of me that would want to go back to school to be like a doctor, quote unquote, in terms of like the Western medical field, just seeing how
We can agree on that together.
yeah, just seeing how broken the system is. It's just not on my desire list. So now you started off with nutrition. Just for like example purposes, what were right, you cut out dairy, you cut out gluten. How
Yes.
did you start feeling? And then what was your next move after that?
I started feeling great. So the first thing I noticed that had changed was the fatigue wasn't as intense. And I noticed my joints. At one point, my joints had hurt so badly every morning when I got out of bed. And I felt the one thing that stayed for, I would say, the longest was the hair loss, was pulling
Mm,
clumps of hair out of my head. But the fatigue for the most part went away. And then I just felt like I had energy to do things. And I didn't feel like I was super, super weak,
mm,
and I wasn't waking up every day planning a nap. And I
mm.
feel like when you're 22, 23, waking up every day and planning a nap is not like something that should
Yeah.
be on your to-do list.
Right. Yeah. Um, so then you go through this journey. Now, were you still on medication at this point, or did you wean yourself off?
I started weaning myself off, which is always something I have to be careful of. I did it on my own. I don't
Yeah,
recommend anybody do
I
it on their
know.
own.
I
Definitely
know.
work with your doctor for sure. But yeah, I started weaning myself off. I think I started taking it every other day, and then, slowly took myself off of it, which,
And
like I
how
said, don't
how
recommend,
long,
but
yeah, how long was that period of time?
it was quick. I want to say like 2 months. I
Wow.
think I had just been so fed up that I was like, you know what, whatever. Like let's just see what happens. It doesn't make me feel better. And I hadn't fully dove into what the thyroid did at that point. I knew just the basics from school. So I was like, whatever, let's just see how it goes. Which it worked out for me, thankfully. But I tell everyone, definitely do it under some
Yeah,
supervision.
right. Now, after this, is this where you kind of took a dive into spirituality and energetics and like
Yes.
the spiritual side? Okay. And how did
I
that
had been
go?
in I had been in such a funky mood for like a full week straight, and somebody had said, "You should go take a gong wash." And I was like, "What in God's name?"
Ooh,
What
yeah.
in God's name is a gong wash? Like, where does that happen? So I ended up finding somebody online, and turns out she went from upstate to Long Island, where I live, and did it every other week. She was in town that week. So she had her number up online, and I said there was a gong wash on Thursday, and I texted her and said, we don't know each other, but I see you have this thing called a gong wash. Can I come? And she had shared with me that she actually had a full week of events planned. So Tuesday was Reiki, a Reiki circle. Wednesday was the gong wash, and then Thursday was something else. So I was like, all right, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I might as well jump in. I'm not busy tonight, so let me just come to your Reiki circle. And once I was there, I just felt so at home, and I just knew that was the next step from there.
Very cool. Now, that obviously was the deep dive into your spiritual awakening.
Yeah, gong wash is an intense
gong
way to
wash,
start.
which is magnificent, by the way. If you haven't done it, I highly recommend.
Amazing.
Now, were you a spiritual person prior to this?
I had been a very spiritual person until I started doing my rotations in the hospital. And I remember during my time in the hospital, you almost get like food for it a little bit. Like, I think there was a lot of judgment when I had shared any spiritual thoughts or, any holistic thoughts. I received a lot of judgment for it. So I kind of just, shut up and put up in a way, and just kind of put it on the back burner. And then after working, I kind of lost myself a little bit. And I always like to say I found my way back to spirituality, because that's really how I feel about it.
Yeah, I agree. And how long ago was this process of you going through like healing your thyroid?
I took so the nutrition I changed in the summer of 2016.
Okay.
And then I think I went to the gong wash in summer of 2017, around then.
Okay. Got it. So this was a little bit of time. It didn't happen overnight, obviously.
Absolutely not. And it won't. None of this will happen overnight.
No, it won't.
And I think that's the hardest part to accept, is that, and you and I know this, it's a journey. It really does take time. And I've met women who are like, oh, I want to heal my thyroid. Is it easy? I'm like, well, no. You have to, and like, oh, so I really have to be like all in. It's like, I mean, yeah, but when you are all in, you feel beautiful, and it's so worth it. And it's hard at first, and I'm sure you can relate to that too. It's extremely difficult to do it at first, but I can't imagine life any other way now.
So true. No, I completely concur with that. Now, when you went through, right, let's talk about the throat chakra. So when you were going through that healing journey, I know for me, a lot of stuff came up. And again, when you go through any type of like, obviously dis-ease in the body, that's stagnancy with your energetic flow. Now, what was that healing journey for you like? Because I know for me, it was like really, I mean, I had to be very vulnerable, which I did.
Yes.
I felt very uncomfortable with, but you get over it, obviously. So I'm curious how it went for you.
It was hard at first. And I remember reading about the throat chakra, and I was like, okay, I've always been a good listener. I've always been really good with communication. And then I was just kind of thrown. I was like, well, this doesn't make sense to me. And then I read somewhere about true purpose. And I was like, oh, so true purpose is also your throat chakra. So that's when I started doing the deep digging and the journaling. And I was like, okay, I love nutrition, but I feel like there's something more. So when I started combining the spirituality, that for me felt like my true purpose. And that's when I started talking to people, and I was like, well, what if we combined the two of these? What if we, focused on, so much more than just the physical body? And what if we really dedicated time to focusing on spirituality, meditation, handling all of that? And this is before, now I think it's a little more common. All of this was before it was common to, it was cool to say I meditate in the mornings every morning, and, wait to check out my crystals on my nightstand. So, it was definitely a tough place to be. But I think that was like the biggest game changer for me in that sense. That's really when I felt like my throat chakra opened, because I felt like I found my true purpose, and it was combining the two, and then just learning to share that it was possible to feel better. And I think that's part of my purpose on this planet, is to help people realize you can feel better. I can't guarantee you're going to have the results I've had, but you can feel better. There are steps you can take to feel better. And that's when I noticed I really started to thrive. My hair started growing back in, my skin cleared up. I wasn't cold, 95% of the time. And it was unbelievable.
Wow. That is so incredible. Congrats on your journey. That's so great.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So now you're medication free and healthy and whole.
Yes. Yes,
That's
healthy and
great.
whole. And I do have some flare-ups, and it's, we talk about vulnerability, and whenever I do have those flare-ups, part of it is getting raw and real with myself and saying, "Okay, what broke?" And sometimes it's, "Okay, I didn't eat the way I should have eaten."
Right.
I had that gluten, some I can't, and it's funny, I can't have dairy now. I ended up being allergic to dairy after years of being off of it.
Yeah.
Um, but a lot of the times it's something either stress related or something back to that throat chakra where it's like, okay, have I not been speaking up for myself? Have I not been communicating properly?
Right. And for some context for the listeners, so we have these in-body chakra points, which are energetic points in our body that are connected to everything, including organs, body parts, seasons, the five elements, those things. And so whenever you are going through some type of dis-ease in the body, think about what level it's on in regards to your body. So we're talking about the throat chakra, which is correlated to literally the throat, the midpoint between the head and the body, and the thyroid gland. And both of us have had our adversities with our throat chakras because we develop some type of dis-ease and stagnancy. And I mean, it's as clear as day. Obviously, we know the environmental toxins, the nutrition, like the non-negotiables, the
Yeah.
foundation of health, those things need to be handled, but also in combination with doing the healing work, going to gong washes, going to Reiki circles, going to get energetic healings, journaling, meditating, those things that help your whole auric field and energetic fields, because again, that's connected to organs, that's connected to body parts. And if you lean into this whatever dis-ease or whatever ails your body, like think about, okay, what is this disease? Where is it in my body? And which energetic point is connected to it? Because every single disease, everything has an energetic meaning. Every dis-ease has an energetic meaning. So right now we're really talking about the throat chakra, the thyroid gland, and how it can really play a huge role in your entire health. The thyroid is everything. And especially it's connected to your reproductive system, your metabolic system. Every system in the body is connected to the thyroid. Everything's connected because we need to, again, take a look at what is the root cause? What is going on here that we need to resolve? And I know and I believe that when you lean into whatever adversity that you're going through, whether it be health related, emotional related, mentally related, spiritually related, lean into that because that's going to be the medicine for healing.
And one thing I will say, I had to, in 2016, when I started this journey, I had to also really be conscious of my mindset and where I was in that sense. So every day I woke up, I had to tell myself, and it was it was surrendering before I knew I was surrendering. And
Right.
it was getting up in the morning and saying, you know what, one day I'm going to feel better. I don't know how. And it was just not knowing how it was going to happen. It was just trusting that it was going to happen somehow, some way. It was just going to unfold in front of me, and I was just going to somehow feel better at some point. And I always say, I literally wrote my own story of wellness because it was getting up every day and deciding I was going to be okay. And I think that's the biggest thing when you're going through any sort of disease process. And I think the first person to teach me that was my dad. Is actually a survivor of pancreatic cancer, which is
Oh,
really, really rare.
yeah.
But he had this energy going into his Whipple procedure that was just unmatched. And I remember walking him to the OR and, trying to be really tough and trying to, not
Yeah.
break down. And, then he said those two magic words that make you break down when you're trying not to, what's wrong? So once he said that, I broke down, but he literally looked at me. He's like, well, why are you crying? I'm just going to go take an 8-hour nap while they take some organs out of me. I'm like, it's all good. Like,
Oh, your
so
dad's
just
awesome.
he's he's really, really great, but he's, just having that energy, and he just decided he was going to be okay. And I never once saw him really have a moment of, oh my God, I'm scared. And I'm sure he had those moments, but he just had this energy and this presence of, I'm going to be fine. And he just, went into it really believing that and really letting that be his story and his guide. And I think, I really think that made such a difference for him. And I think that's something I look back on in my life. And that was something that inspired me so much. And then you brought up the chemicals, and it's so funny because that was something else that I had taken a dive into. And something that so many women don't realize is that a lot of the products that we're putting on our bodies, from our makeup to our hairspray to, our soaps, our deodorants, are terrible for us. And they are
Terrible.
filled with so many endocrine disruptors, which, if anyone doesn't know what an endocrine disruptor is, it mimics estrogen in the body and sends off different signals. This is a super simplified version of it, sends off all of these signals, and it disrupts your whole hormone system. And hormones, especially as women, hormones run the show.
Yep.
For the most part. And it's so sad that our makeup has the stuff in it. And, that's something that was huge too, realizing what I was putting onto my body. And, spiritually, we view our bodies as temples and making sure that we really treasure them. So really stepping back and looking into that as well was huge for me.
I completely agree, because again, that is a piece to the puzzle that is huge. It's basically like looking at all those things as weakening the system, weakening every single day, weakening the system. And then an emotional traumatic experience, whatever, trauma, big T, little t, happens. And then boom, it literally is the straw that broke the camel's back. So is it the chicken or the egg? I don't know. Whether you already had those, that traumatic experience, and then you held on to that, and then you started weakening your system with all these different chemicals and products and all these different things. Is it the chicken or the egg? I don't know, but that's for you to figure out. And usually deep down, when you take a moment and you're like, all right, I'm going to get real with myself, that's when the answer will come to you.
And that's when healing begins, because you can take all of these steps and say, you know what, and I've met so many people who they read the books and, they do things, but they don't really fully dive in. And, I had a patient who I worked with for a year, and she was somebody who fully dove in, and we had our last session together yesterday. She's an amazing woman. And seeing it from a different perspective, where you really watch somebody dive in, you notice the difference. You really see somebody heal, because healing, you can't half heal. You can, if you're going to go in, you really want to make sure you go in fully. And the one thing I always say is, you only go to bed with one person every single night of your life, and that is yourself.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go to bed happy every single night. That's just,
life,
how life goes. Yeah. How life goes. But when you lay down at night, are you at least happy and content with the person that you are? Are you able to be vulnerable enough with yourself to be in a good state of mind where you're like, you know what, I may not have the job, the career, the money, the partner, whatever it is, but I'm happy with where I'm at. I'm happy with where I am. And that's the first thing that you need to do when you start healing, is let yourself be vulnerable with yourself. And like Rumi says, the wound is where the light enters you. So you really got to make sure that you're willing to crack yourself open on these healing journeys.
Oh, absolutely. So now that you went through the healing journey, right?
Yes.
Now talk about how you've taken that and you've developed your own business out of this, and how you serve other people. Let's talk a little, share that with us.
Sure. So as the more women I spoke to, there were so many people who were like, well, how do I do that? How do I do that? And they didn't even know it was possible to go into remission, because they were kind of told the same thing I was told, take this medication every day for the rest of your life, and that's your option. And you're never presented with, another option. You're never told, hey, you could feel better if you do these things. So as I just started speaking to more women, there were so many of them saying, you should write a book, or you should put together a course, or you should host classes. So I did start a business, still very, very new, but
Beautiful.
I will be putting together some online courses that combine spirituality and the physical sense of healing, because we need both. We are complicated individuals, and we are souls having a human experience, and there's a lot to healing. And what I'm really trying to focus on is putting together everything that I wish I knew at the time. And, it took me about 7 years to fully find everything and put everything together and figure out something was wrong. And that's 7 years is a long time. And I think of my years from when I was 18 years old up until I was almost, I guess, about 27 when I healed. And that's a long time to feel bad, especially when you're that young. That's supposed to be
Yeah.
like your time of your life. So my focus is putting online courses together in Long Island. I teach a bunch of different courses all throughout the islands. I do a bunch of Reiki circles. So for right now, my plan is just to put together some online courses, work on a book, and touch as many lives as I can with what I gained, and leave every room I enter just a little bit brighter than when I came in.
I can't wait for that. Especially the book. I can't wait.
I'm very excited for the book. I think it's a book that's going to be a little vulnerable for me to put out there.
Oh,
Just
for
because,
sure.
like you said, healing is vulnerable. And I know we've talked about this in the authorship community too. There are certain things I write and I'm like, oh my God, do I want people to know that? Do I want people to know that that's how I was feeling? That's, what I had to work through. And then, there's funky parts too, where you're like, are you going to hurt anybody's feelings when you put this book out there because of what you went through? So there's a lot to go through, but I am hoping it comes out within the next year and a half or so.
Oh, for sure. I am so certain of that. Like, you've already
Thank you.
made the step. And listen, you showed up, you came to the author community. And, for those of you who want to write a book or love to write or are currently an author, it's a free community. It's called Empowered Author Community. I host it at Spirit and Soul Studio, in person or virtual. And it's just a really great time of other people who want to learn more about writing and sharing their story, because that's what we're doing. We're sharing our stories. And we have to do it in a way.
Meditation you did.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God.
The meditation you did was wild. Gena did a past life meditation for us in the authorship community. And I remember, and I know past lives is new for a lot of people, but when I did the meditation, I had always felt, and it was funny because I work out in a sauna studio pretty often, and I always have this panic. And I remember you and I talked about it after, where I can't breathe. Like, I feel like someone's literally like constricting me. And when we did the past life meditation, I think I told you, I saw myself as an older gentleman who had planned this class. I don't know what I was teaching, in my past life. And, nobody came, and I guess I must have been teaching something that was against the law, whatever I was doing. But I was taken away, and I was actually, suffocated. I think I had told you I had seen nights actually, suffocate me. And ever since then, I haven't had any issues breathing in a workout class. So if you haven't done a past life meditation, to the listeners, highly, highly recommend it. Definitely a vulnerable place to be, but really, really helped in terms of authorship. So I was like, wow, look at that. Like, there's so much. And there's another layer that we can include too.
I have full body chills. That is amazing. Yeah. Guys, when we did this, again, when I lead meditations, like, it's very channeled and intuitive. And it was actually the day before I taught the class, and it just came through. I was kind of just like planning a little bit. Okay, what are we going to talk about? And I always integrate some type of like healing modality, sound, and meditation, Reiki, whatever it may be, energetic healing. And all of a sudden it was just like past life. Like, they all need to go through a past life regression meditation, and you're going to bring them through it. And I was like, okay, we're going to do it. Heard. And each one of you had a similar, like, different experience, but all similar in messaging regarding the throat chakra.
Yep.
It was so cool to witness.
Throat chakra kind of day.
It was. And to hear that you don't have problems, like, and that's like suffocating after a workout is like, I mean, I can't ask for anything more, truly.
I just finished 75 hard yesterday. So I was working out a lot towards the end, and to not have that was just like such an amazing moment for me. Cause I was like, oh my God, I've been doing all these workouts. And at the end I was like, why can't I breathe? And I would always have this fear that I was just going to stop breathing. And I was like, this makes no sense. Where did this come from? And, ever since that meditation, it hasn't popped up once. And I was like, wow, so this is what it's like to breathe all the time and be a normal human being.
Wow. Wow. And guys, this is why it's super important to take a deep dive into your healing journey, going through your past lives, going into deep meditations, getting energetic healings done. I mean, it was just, and in that moment, in that time, like you were the one, you had to go through that in that moment, in that time, to release that trauma that your soul was holding on to. It wasn't even in this lifetime.
Yes, exactly. Well, the other thing is too, and one of the things I talk to people about a lot is healing is not always fun, nor is it linear. There's going to
Nope.
be moments where like healing is really icky. And I have two friends that are Reiki practitioners, and we're two of my best friends. And, we say all the time, like, oh, like, there's the amount of times, and I'm sure you've been there too, where you're like, I thought I was past this.
Right.
You end up in the same spot. But there are moments where when you get vulnerable, it's really hard. And it's, it's not all sunflowers and roses and sunshine during that healing journey, but it's so worth it. Even if you have a month of funk and just funky feelings and grossness, it's so worth it to push through and really heal it, because once you heal it, you don't repeat the pattern.
Right. Oh, phenomenal. Jaclyn, as we wrap up, are there any words of wisdom you would like to leave the listeners?
That is a great question. I think the one thing I'm going to say is, if once you start your healing journey, number one, like I said before, really write your story of wellness. Get up every day, and it's not going to be easy. Even if you have to journal, I trust that universe, God, whatever you want to refer to, is going to have my back, and, I'm going to get through this. Okay. But then also follow your intuition. And there's been so many times on my healing journey where I did not follow my intuition. And, that goes for a span across the board in terms of your life. Follow your intuition with, education, follow your intuition with work, relationships, friendships, be careful who you surround yourself with during your healing journey. It's a whole nother topic that we could dive into, but, really make sure that you're following that intuition. It's not going to lead you astray, and your intuition is never going to be negative. So it's never going to say something to you like, do this or else, really learn how to trust that inner guide that you have within you, and let it lead you down paths that are going to help you thrive. And if you let yourself be vulnerable, like we were saying, you wouldn't believe what's going to unfold in front of you. It's pretty wild.
It's magical, and I love it.
It's magical. It's magical. It's better than Disney World. It's magical. Because you provided it, and it cost a lot less.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure talking with you, and I'm sure I'll see you so soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Where can people find you?
I am on Instagram at _autoimmune_revolution. So you could find me there, sharing some thyroid tips, sharing some spirituality tips, and, hopefully I'll be expanding to some other places soon, but always feel free to, pop in my DMs as well and say hello if you have any questions, but that's probably the easiest way to reach me.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I'll be seeing you soon. Guys, if you like this episode, like, share, subscribe, share with other people who need this information, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.